What if money was the only thing that mattered to you in all of existence? How sad and ugly an existence would you have? Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. I am excited today. One of the things I really love about having a YouTube channel that talks about magic cards is now when stuff comes out, I get to dive in deeper with all of you. Because in all honesty, having this outlet to explore the flavor and the lore of magic has actually greatly grown my appreciation for it. I had gotten to the point where I would just look through cards in a pack and just be like, okay, the only thing that matters is the rare, really, or maybe if there's a good uncommon in there if you're lucky. Just focused on the power level of cards and not stopping to appreciate cards for just what they are. Now, the card we're going to talk about today is actually both powerful and not rare. It's been upgraded to uncommon, though. They have shifted it upwards, which I can't really say I blame them for. But anyways, I am excited to get to talk about the Grey Merchant of Asphodel. So let me take a look here, and we will let you take a look at the same time, because obviously me just taking a look ain't gonna help you that much. You want to see it on the screen too, right? What we're looking at first is the older printing of this card from the original Theros block, because I want to contrast and compare the two, but in terms of the way the card operates, it's the exact same way. Basically, it is 2 black and 3 for a 2/4 zombie. For some reason, I always thought of him as a 2/2. The fact that he has 4 toughness is all right. I mean, admittedly, his power and toughness are some of the more minimal concerns about the card. It's not really what you find inviting and enjoyable about this. This is a card that a bunch of people will be familiar with because this is actually a half-decently popular card. People like to call him the Gary. He's Gary, Merchant of Asphodel. He's a legendary. Anyways, when Grey Merchant of Asphodel enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black. You gain life equal to the life lost this way. And each black mana in the mana cost of permanents you control counts towards your devotion to black. So just putting this guy out by himself, your opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. But he also cares about the black permanent, the black cost of every other permanent you have out. So you can see how in the current environment with Theros leaning into the whole like monocolored concepts, you've got stuff like Ayara, she costs 3 black. You've got the Black Cavalier. There's a lot of cards that care about having a bunch of black mana or whatever color it is you're playing when we're talking about devotion. But specifically for the Grey Merchant, there are a lot of black cards right now that are going to lead to some just gross, silly nonsense. And Ayara also is one of those drain your opponent for life kind of cards too. So it's just the silly stuff that you can pull with this in standard alone would be all right. But yeah, Gary here is important enough that he reaches outside of standard. Now, conceptually, what we are looking at is one of the returned. You will notice that this is a zombie creature. You'll also notice that he has a funky golden mask on. And again, we're looking at the original Theros version here before we switch over to talk about the newer variation artwork of the card. But the flavor concept behind this right here is when your life ends in Theros, you travel to the underworld, and that's where you reside. Once your life ends, your loved ones will bury you with a clay mask on, and the clay mask will have your features. It is actually one of the ways that helps you get to the underworld. It helps Theros know who you are so that he can ferry your soul on its way on over to the underworld. So, souls in the underworld actually trade pieces of these clay masks. The gold in the underworld is actually very, very commonplace. It would just be like all around you, the same way that rocks are around us. You could just go and be like, oh, look at all these piles of rocks on the ground and pick them up. That's how gold is in the underworld. Now, there are some undead that, or, they're not undead at this point. When they're in the underworld, technically they're just the dead, right? Because the dead live in the underworld and the undead escape from the underworld. What happens is there's a big sacrifice to be made because when you're in the underworld, you get to retain who you are. Maybe not forever, but for a considerable amount of time. It may slowly ebb away from you. You may not get to You may not get to keep your sense of self. You may not get to keep, anyways, you may not get to keep your sense of self forever in the underworld, but you will get to just have that kind of slowly fade. When you come back as one of the returned, like this gray merchant, then you end up in a scenario where you will retain your skills and understanding of the world as what it is, but you forfeit every aspect of yourself. You forget who you are. You forget your passions. You forget your loves. You forget your loved ones, your friends. All of that is meaningless to you. Everything that connects you to the world, it's a pretty rough trade-off, because in the underworld, you're dead and you can pine to exist. You can be like, oh man, I wish that I was alive, back with my friends and family, doing the things that I enjoy. And the cruel twist is, when you go back, you can remember nothing you did that gave you joy. You're essentially almost an automaton, just driven to robotically do the things that you did in existence. So this Grey Merchant of Asphodel, he is a resident of Asphodel, and that is where the returned end up. These returned who have masks fashioned of gold, that's part of the process of losing yourself. So the golden mask portrays who they were in life, but underneath it all, that's gone. And they just robotically go through the motions, like someone who has lost all joy in life. So when we're looking at the artwork, you can see there's kind of a forlorn sense to this artwork. The Grey Merchant is trudging onwards. He's got his burden of big gold coins there that he's made from selling his wares. The wind is whipping up all around him. You can see his garments blowing in the wind there. And he is walking alone. He is walking alone down this like narrow grain path. There's a sense of loneliness to this artwork. His stance is not one of a happy individual. He's got some beefy arms though. He's got some beefcake arms from hauling that gold around. But what you'll notice, if you look closer at the artwork, you will notice there's actually gold that's trailing out of that satchel. The big old bag that he has slung over his shoulder there is gold trailing out of it, and you can see it leading all the way back. And the gold is cool from a perspective of like, that's supposed to represent, I suppose, you gaining resources, the life gain and your opponent life loss. You know, it's the resources, it's blood money, however you want to look at it. The money to me has always represented the concept of the life gain. They are bringing you these level of riches. So this Grey Merchant just kind of does business with your other black creatures to gain you that. The flavor is a little bit, just a tiny bit wonky with the conversion from the like gold coinage to your life, but we've seen this actually in the past. There were cards like Icatian Money Changer, who specifically was revolved around giving you life and using a coin concept. So this actually has historical precedence in Magic the Gathering as well. So to me, that's what the coins represent, that treasure of the life gain that you are getting there. But what's really crazy is you think about this merchant, and he is driven to continue to do his trade. He is driven to continue to procure items and to sell them for gold. But the thing is, he comes from the underworld, where gold is plentiful. You could have all the gold you want in the world, but instead, he's here, basically a slave to old patterns, where he is forced to go out and get gold. Is worthless in the underworld, and that's where he should be. So he is out there getting gold in the form of these coins for no purpose. He's not earning money to pay for his family. He's not earning money to keep himself alive. He's not earning money to pay for even something like gambling addictions or other vices that brought him pleasure. None of that exists to him anymore. He's essentially a zombified, robotic style individual who is just driven to constantly engage in the process of buying and selling items for no actual gain. And he is oblivious. He is oblivious even to losing these gold coins. You can see it as they trail away behind him. It just adds to that sense of pointlessness to what he's doing in a way. He's doing it all to get these coins, and the coins are just, they don't even matter as they are left by the wayside. And when we take a look at the new artwork, we can see a very similar forlorn concept. I really like both of these gray merchants very, very much. So obviously I don't need to go over the abilities or anything else. We just need to talk about the artwork of this new one. You can see this one accentuates even more the concept of the gold not mattering. Look at on his back. He has two massive bags of gold. They're just pouring gold everywhere, right? Just pouring gold all over the place. But behind him on the road, you can see a full sack of gold. Like, that's a full sack. He had 3 of those sacks. And he isn't even pausing to go back and pick up that sack of gold. That's how meaningless the gold itself is. I really like the way they depicted this gray merchant, even more so because the money looks like even more of a burden to this gray merchant. The previous one had it slung over his shoulder, right? This one, he is hunched forwards with 2 massive, what must be incredibly heavy sacks of gold coins, and they are weighing him down. He is being oppressed in a way by this money. And again, we have the gold. Look, he's got the golden mask, and he's even got another golden mask just there on his sash too, like it's no thing, and multiple little pouches at his belt, also no doubt full of gold. I like the little splash of red that is used on his garment and the ribbon that's trailing off of it as well, because it's just, the rest of the artwork is really dark. He is definitely the gray merchant. They made his skin gray, which makes perfect sense. I mean, there's the gray, it's pretty easy. There's the gray merchant. That's how people are. They will usually use very simple descriptors. So they would call them gray merchants. That works for me. This also has the same concept of loneliness to it. If you'll notice, it's only the gray merchant himself on this long, lonely path. You can see the path actually stretching out very far into the distance. So this is just sad, honestly. When you think about this, this is a human being who at one point laughed and loved and enjoyed their life, spent their time as a merchant, and judging by how much gold they were able to net here, you imagine that they were a very successful style trader, right? And so those skills still remain. The understanding of the world still remains, but all joy and point to existence is just sucked away. And you've got all these clouds and it looks like smoke or steam escaping from the underworld as well. This is such an evocative piece of artwork. I absolutely enjoy it. Now I'm curious. I want to know how you guys feel when you look at these cards, because this is a very like biased and personalized kind of interpretation, right? This could mean something completely different to you. What do you see when you look at the gray merchants? Or do you just see them and look and go, okay, it's just a bunch of numbers. All I care about is what I can do with them in the game. I'm genuinely curious. Do these cards evoke the same emotions in you guys? Do you get the same perspective? Let me know in the comments below. Big shout out to my patrons and channel members. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. Appreciate that a lot. I'm gonna put some links to some other videos on this channel and the videos over on my other channel where we're having some laughs. You're welcome to come on by. And remember, my friends, together we are the 6th color of magic.